Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Project Artemis channel. My name is Emma Hagen and today I will be VOD reviewing my stream games from the Full Grip tournament, which, spoilers alert, I won. Joining me today I have Nathan Hargreaves. You might be confused why a judge is on the call, but why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. So my name is Nathan Hargreaves. I played the initial version of this Flareon list to NAIC, where I tied my win into top cut with the deck. I played the 101 Pidgeot in Flareon as sort of a we'll get into that a bit more on down the line. But Emma and I have been working together for quite a while, and we thought, what better time to work on a deck that we both really enjoy playing, and that's sort of how Flareon came to be. So I suppose today we will be going through some of the best parts of Flareon and why we think it's so good.
Yeah, I think the best way to do it is to just hop right into the games.
Hi folks, Sable here from Project Artemis. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsor Heavy Play for sponsoring the team and showcase off a few of their wonderful products that they make. Starting off, we have their deck box RFG Max. This is a wonderful little magnetic deck box, flip alcove with a picture display for you to showcase your favorite card. We also have their dice box RFG. What's nice about this is it magnetizes to itself, so that is not moving. You don't have to worry about like accidentally knocking over your dice tray or anything. It also magnetizes to deck box. Their full system is entirely magnetic, so you can dice box to dice box, deck box to deck box, deck box to dice box here. And even going one step further, they have a foldable magnetized playmat. So instead of rolling things up, this folds up nice and flat. You can throw it in your backpack real easy. And then your dice box also will magnetize to it. Keep your dice box on there. Keep it on your playmat nice and flat there in the corner, and that thing is not moving. Once again, we just want to say thank you to Heavy Play. If you're interested in any of the products seen here, please go to heavyplay.com/Artemis or use code Artemis at checkout for 10% off your order. They have red, blue, black, white, gray, green, purple, a whole bevy of colors in their entire suite for you to use to your heart's content. We really do recommend you checking out their product. Anyway, back to the video.
Nathan, have you played much of the Terabox matchup before?
I've played it a little bit. I feel like you might know a bit more about it than me. I think the way that you're approaching it here, obviously going first in this matchup is crucial. Just winning the coin flip secures the matchup for us, essentially.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are still lines that we can take if we do lose the coin flip and have to go second. But if we win that flip, we essentially have complete control over the game. And unless they literally open Crisping Crystal and something like a Wellspring and manage to get a first attack off and take 2 prize cards, we should just always win the game.
Yeah, that's been my experience with it. Like, it's essentially a mirror match where we both need a little bit to get working, but Terabox needs a lot in the mid game to just continue the pressure. But we play Pidgeot and we play more low maintenance attackers, so we always ask the questions and Terabox needs to find the answers.
Yes, and going back to what you said about the mid game, I feel like that's the most important thing to note about this matchup is the mid game. To where, as you said, we have Pidgeot in our deck, to where our mid game is so strong because we just remain so consistent throughout. We're drawing more cards with Versatility, we're putting more Noctowls into play and using Jewel Seeker to find the exact pieces that we need. We don't ever really lose tempo in this matchup if we can help it. And that's what gives us the edge, because as long as we're maintaining tempo and we're just chaining our attackers and chaining knockouts, Terabox needs to keep responding to that.
How do you feel about my turn 1 in this matchup with just the Hoothoot, Pidgey, Noctowl? You would also go to Pidgey over second Noctowl? Second.
I think that's a fine call to make here. I feel like it is, to a degree, it's certainly somewhat greedy. But when you see your opponent opening Pikachu, that's when you know, okay, they need to get a little bit more to get their setup going. So I'm free to be a bit more greedy with my setup because I know that my Pokemon probably aren't going to be Wellspring sniped this turn.
Like, the way I typically approach Pokemon as a game is that I don't play around situations that have me lose on the spot regardless of what I respond with. Rather, I play around what I expect to happen and what is the worst case scenario that I can still win in. And the worst case scenario where I can still win is not a Wellspring. That is the worst case scenario where the game is almost over. But with the Serrano, I do have some comeback mechanisms just by having access to Fez. But like in this type of situations, I just want to ensure that I get the lead, I get to immediately take over the game, and if my opponent has the turn 1, they have the turn 1.
Yeah. And I'd just like to just pause here for a moment and just talk about how this turn went for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did here is, as you can see, we started the turn off with the Serrano, enabling us to get the Pidgeot, Pheasantipity, and Wellspring. And I think getting those 3 cards is what you want to be doing, because with the Noctowl in hand, which already is a pretty strong opening hand, the fact that we have Serrano and that we have Noctowl because we got it off of our Fang Call, the fact that we can play the Serrano means that's 1 fewer piece that we need to commit our Noctowl to. So with the Noctowl, we're free to grab Rare Candy and Switch, because we need the Switch to break free of that Soblock from the Wellspring. So with the Switch, we're free to go into our Flareon and start powering up our attackers. I also really like the playing down the Underdepths and playing the Nest Ball for the Hoothoot. Just to say, my board is now Pidgeot, Pheasantipity, and Hoothoot. No matter what you knock out, I can probably formulate an answer next turn.
Yeah, especially with this Burning Charge to the Wellspring. Like, I should be able to take 3 prizes next turn, making this Burning Charge for not a KO essentially a 1-prize KO. And taking 3 prizes into the Terabox matchup is just great, because if you whiff a turn, you can just Kieran for game, or Briar for game, I mean.
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the important things to note here is obviously the Burning Charge to the Wellspring, just because we want to get that second attacker up and running as fast as possible. We want to put as many threats on our board as possible to where no matter what our opponent knocks out, we're not really too bothered. We're okay with just saying, I have this, this, and this. Pick one, the other 2 will come straight back at you.
I want to highlight what happens now, because he actually does get the quad Hoothoot, which is very crucial for him in this matchup. Like, the way it went for me in Pittsburgh, I beat the Terabox, I played 2-0 by just counter catch a Wellspring, GG, counter catch a Wellspring, GG. But now he should be in the game regardless, because he has access to another Hoothoot.
Yes. So as we can see here, the fact that there are 3 Hoothoot on the bench means that no matter what you do with your counter catcher and your Wellspring, he will always have a Hoothoot ready to evolve into Noctowl for next turn, which means we now can't completely shut off what he's doing, so we just need to focus on what we're doing.
Exactly. Like, he's taking 2 prizes now, and that's technically putting him ahead, but we get to play Art next turn.
So the interesting thing that you say about it's technically putting him ahead is that when you actually look at the board state and when you look at both players' prize maps, actually, even though prizes are 4 to 6 at the moment, it's not really as far ahead as you think. No. Especially not when we play Countercatcher and Briar in our deck.
like, this is my ideal, like, turn, basically. I couldn't have asked for anything more, and I couldn't have needed anything less.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Pidgeot, we have the Pheasantipity, we have the Hoot Hoot, to where we just have such a strong consistency engine on board to where we can answer pretty much anything. So that Pikachu coming in, killing the Flareon, we're absolutely fine with that. We have an answer.
Yep.
Yeah, and as you can see there, the boss onto that Wellspring, very, very good. Going for the Torrential Pump, 3 prize cards. So now that you're down to 3 prize cards, this essentially means that not only are you ahead in the prize race, you probably stay ahead, because the prize map from here for the Terabox player looks something like, well, I don't really want to be taking a 2 prize KO, because if I do that, then Briar just comes in and sweeps me. But I also don't really want to be taking a 1 prize KO, because if I do that, I go down to 3 prize cards remaining, and then
stay ahead in the game.
I just lose the prize race.
Like, notably, the important thing about this matchup is that Colin doesn't play Countercatcher. If he did play Countercatcher, then he would have had the option of Countercatcher Hoot Hoot, kill Hoot Hoot and Eevee, and leave me with no access to Noctowl next turn. So now his only outs are either kill Hoot Hoot, take 1 prize, go behind in the prize map, or take a 2 prizer, go down to 2 and be vulnerable to Briar.
Yes. I think with this board state, though, it's important to note that with the Pikachu in the active and no other 2 prize Pokemon on the bench as of right now is quite big, because it would mean that if we want to Briar, then we would have to potentially formulate another Wellspring. But this is what I don't like here. I don't like the fact that he's just gone Nest Ball for a Pheasantipity, and he's just given us a really easy target to close the game out on.
But at the same time, if he doesn't do this, we have a lot of really good options available to us. Like, without access to a 2 prizer, we can just super easily next turn go either Iono, Countercatcher, Assault Landing his Fan Rotom, go down to 2 prizes, and just force him to take a 1 prize KO, basically. Just Iono to 2 with nothing on the board, or just pass the turn. Or alternatively, we actually are able to take a Wellspring Countercatcher Briar line, because we have access to Manual Attach, Crystal, Glass Trumpet, Energy Switch. It seems a lot, but with the Night Stretcher, it's only 5 cards, and we have access to Pheasantipity, our hand from before, and Pidgeot with the Noctowl. So realistically, it's not asking a lot as long as none of those things are priced.
Yeah. And so what we're seeing here is just a really common board state. We're just looking for a way to close the game. All of those lovely 2 prize Pokemon that have just come down onto the Terabox player's bench make it a lot easier for us to close the game out with something like a Countercatcher Briar. If we can pull off, Countercatcher Briar, get into a Flareon, get a Burning Charge onto something like the Ogerpon, then we win the game, which is great. And that's the most low maintenance way that we would typically try and win the game. But obviously it's all dependent on what we have in hand and what we can reasonably sequence ourselves into. So we see here, obviously, you grab the Noctowl, play a Night Stretcher to recover a Terra Pokemon, like the Flareon, so that we have access to our Noctowl again. Crystal coming down, Noctowl to Jewel Seeker for the Countercatcher Briar, as we say. Quick search for the energy, onto the Ogerpon, take the game. Really, really clean line. This is the kind of stuff that we want to be doing in most games, just to say, here is a really easy way that I can just steal the game from you.
Like, the casters were super harsh on Colin for benching that Teal Mask. But I personally don't think it really mattered because it's super easy for me to just Ultra Ball for Terapagos instead of Flareon and get a KO with Beat down on the Versatility. So the TL Mass,
and
it's a misplay, but it really doesn't matter.
That is also something that you could do, to where your hand looked like it had enough resources in to go, okay, we'll go Terapagos and we'll get 7 Pokemon on our bench, and we'll just do that same Countercatcher Briar strategy and take the last 3 prizes. And this is why 2 Countercatcher in this deck is so powerful, just to allow that Countercatcher Briar to be almost always active when you need it. That way we can either burn a Countercatcher early, or if we have to discard it, we can discard one early, just to have access to that second Countercatcher so that we can effectively always go Countercatcher Briar in the matchups where we need to.
Yeah, like it would have been possible for me to boss on the turn where I got the Wellspring KO, but that would have been a lot more difficult for me because I then couldn't use my supporter. But just having access to the second Countercatcher just means that in the aggro matchups, you should always just beat them. You should just win. There's nothing they can do.
Yes. And this was something that we discussed going into Frankfurt, I think it was.
Yeah,
because the Frankfurt list didn't actually play... Yeah. The Frankfurt list played 3 boss, 1 Countercatcher, rather than 2 boss, 2 Countercatcher. And this is something that I don't heavily disagree with. I think that's a perfectly fine way of playing the deck. It worked for the event that we needed it to work for, where we were more focused on things like a late game Blood Moon boss to seal the game, for example, especially against the Dragapult matchup. But all in all, I think that having that second copy of Countercatcher in the deck, or rather having that 4th copy of Gust in the deck, just gives us so much more versatility with what it is that we're doing.
Like, we're never going below 4 Gust cards in total. It's just if you want it to be the 3rd boss or the second Countercatcher. For the record, I do think the 3rd boss was really good for Frankfurt, but that was also because we didn't make the latest innovation in the deck. Back in Frankfurt, when we tested, we had the Dragapult matchup be essentially just a game where you completely ignored the Dragapult. Just went KO Badoo, boss game. And it worked fairly decently in testing. Like, I played against my friend and went like 7-2, 8-1 in games or something like that. But those were kind of flawed games from just the setup of things. But what I figured out in Frankfurt is that really didn't work because you just didn't get the setup and able to do so. So we went back to the drawing board and we got the Goku, the Black Belts training, into the list. And with access to Black Belts and being able to one-shot the Dragapult with Carnelian, our prize mapping just became so much easier against Dragapults that we didn't need the 3rd boss for the matchup and was thus able to bring back the second Countercatcher for the aggressive matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the game at hand for a second here, we can see that you've gone Poffin for Rotom Pidgey. Now, I can only assume that you've done a phenomenal job of prize checking, and you know for a fact that your other 2 Pidgeot pieces are safely accessible to you. So here we see the Jewel Seeker, the Fan Call for 2 Hoot Hoots and a Noctowl, and the Nest Ball for a Wellspring. So I'm just going to ask to pause the game for a second, just while we talk about why we've done this. So the main reason that we've opted for Hoot Noctowl here is just so that we have a response next turn, to where even if they get the absolute nuts with whatever it is that they're doing, we still have a response with Pidgeot or with Noctowl. And obviously getting the 80 HP Hoot Hoot off of our Fan Call is correct, whenever you're getting a Hoot Hoot off of your Fang Call, the very first one you grab should almost always be the 80 HP one, just because it takes it out of your deck, and all of the other Hoot Hoot in your deck have 70 HP, which means that you can play Poffin for them in the mid to late game.
I also want to talk about grabbing the Wellspring instead of Eevee EX.
Yes.
Because the Terra Pokemon of choice here is actually very crucial. If I didn't have access to the second Hoot Hoot, this would have been an Eevee EX for sure. Because the access to the second Hoot Hoot completely dictates which supporter I get to play next turn. If I had to use my only Noctowl to set up, then I would have had to need Serrano to get it. But because I have two Hoot Hoots, I can burn a Noctowl to get Candy Pidgeot, Candy Ultra Ball, precisely, and still get the second Noctowl to be able to Crispin Crystal Countercatcher.
Yes. So the line that we're on about here is having those two Noctowls accessible to you next turn, which is why we're not really too fussed about Terapagos remaining in our active spot, just because even if that goes down, that's not really too valuable for us at the moment. We would rather preserve our Hoot Hoot Pidgey on our bench and just say, okay, next turn, I'm going to set up my board, and even if you do knock out this Terapagos, I will wipe two of your remaining Hoot Hoot to where you probably won't be able to Jewel Seeker after I do that. Yeah. And that means you'll lose a turn of tempo, but because I have Pidgeot on my board, I can gain a turn of tempo. I can quick search for whatever card I want, and I can get right back into the game.
Exactly. So this is just very clean bread and butter. We almost want the Terapagos to die because we just are put in such an insanely advantageous position if the opponent allows us to kill double Hooted.
Yes, so you could, in a sense, say that this Terapagos is almost bait. The fact that we're leaving it there, we don't mind if it dies. You know, it's staring down a Pikachu. That Pikachu is probably going to be taking out that Terapagos. So even if it does that, we're not too bothered. We can still accomplish everything we want to accomplish in the following turn.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm hesitant to call the Terapagos bait because in internal testing, we've used the term bait for when the opponent is supposed to kill something that gives us a direct advantage. But at the same time, if they don't kill the Terapagos, they lose the game on the spot. So there's nothing they can do about it. They're forced into this play.
Yes. Obviously, they could, extend a little bit more, perhaps get a different attacker up, maybe spend another Noctowl to do so. But that just puts them in a worse position, to be honest, because then that would only leave one available Hoot Hoot on their bench, to where we look at that and we go, we're going to take that Hoot Hoot down. We might even potentially disrupt your hand with that one copy of Iono in our deck that we play and say, go from there. Yeah. To where they probably won't be able to do that. So as we can see here, as you previously mentioned, we got the Rare Candy Ultra Ball off of our Jewel Seeker. And we're getting our Pidgeot off of the Ultra Ball, which means we should have everything we need to set up next turn. We get the Eevee on the bench as well, just to solidify our board a little bit. We quick search for the Noctowl, for the Jewel Seeker. We get the Crispin Crystal. Yep, we can see what's coming here. The Countercatcher is coming. And again, this is why playing 2 Countercatcher is so strong, just because we have it available for situations like this, and we have another copy available should we need it in the late game.
Like, I've seen a lot of people trying different lists that primarily cut the second Countercatcher for a Terra or Clefairy or something else useless. But I'm hesitant to talk too much shit because other people do have results with the deck as well. But in my opinion, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the deck is supposed to do in the certain matchups.
Yes. the way that I like to describe it is we do somewhat allow ourselves to go behind in the prize race, but we don't go behind in the prize map because we play Briar.
And so against any deck that doesn't play Briar, if we go first and get the first KO, we should win regardless of what their response is, because they have to go 2-2-2 to keep up in the price race, but if they go 2-2, we Briar, kill something, and win the game on the spot.
Yes. So a lot of the time, our prize map will look something like 1-2-3, where we take a one prize knockout, set our board up with a burning charge or something. They probably then go and knock out that Flareon, which is fine. We respond with a 2 prize knockout. They respond with a 2 prize knockout. They're at 2 prize cards. We're at 3. We play Briar for the game.
Yeah. And crucially, because of this type of prize mapping, we are favored into every single other aggro deck in the format. Goldengo, heavily favored. Joltik Goldengo, heavily favored. Joltik Box, heavily favored. Raging Bolt, favored. Terabox, favored. That's a lot of different decks in the format, and just having access to the Countercatcher Briar plays just makes us better than all of these other decks as being the aggressive deck.
Essentially, yes. The best way to explain it is, if you are a Beatstick deck and you don't have an answer to Briar, you're going to lose the game.
Yeah. What I want to highlight,
which is one of it's one of the strengths of the Flareon deck, to where we are so confident against Beatstick decks, despite not being a Beatstick deck ourselves, but being very much, and I'm going to use this word again, being very much a tempo deck, almost.
I like that way of seeing it. In my opinion, Flareon is the most aggressive deck in the format, because we just steamroll them and never allow the opponent a way back into the game. The thing about the Raging Bolt deck or the Joltik decks is that, sure, you're super aggressive, but then you slow down. Flareon never slows down.
No. And that's the good thing about it, is that we can control the pace at which we play at. Against big Beatstick decks, we can just go turbo aggro and say knockout, knockout, knockout every turn. Which is why we play cards like Terapagos, like Blood Moon, like Glass Trumpet, like Energy Switch, like 2 Countercatcher. Just because it makes all of our Beatstick matchups so much better, to where no matter what they do, we can probably formulate a response almost on the spot.
Exactly. And I want to highlight something specific about this game, because in this game, both of us have priced Versatility. So both me and Colin have very impaired draws. If he were to KO my Wellspring here, I don't actually think I would have a good response. But at the same time, killing both his Hootoots should guarantee that he doesn't have good access to the return KO.
Yes, which is why you made the decision to, rather than load up for an attack on your turn just then, but rather maintain your board state, just by putting the 2 Hoot onto the board, putting the Fan Rotom into the active, and saying, I will take a turn off from attacking, I will maintain my tempo, and I will just set myself up to have a better board position.
Exactly. And I want to know your thoughts about this play I'm making right now.
Yes, so this was the play that I actually watched live as it happened, where, if I remember correctly, the casters were very confused at this one, almost saying, well, why would you do that? But we're here to explain why we did do that. So, as we can see here, you go for a Jewel Seeker, you Jewel Seeker for Stretcher Boss, you Stretcher the energy onto the Hoot Hoot, you get the Fan Rotom, and you take the knockout. Now, this play I like a lot, because, again, as we discussed previously, we're now at 3 prize cards, our opponent is at 4 prize cards. we should always be winning the prize race from this position based on our prize math.
We have a lot of knockouts just available, but inherently we have kind of a weak position because without access to Fez, we have a very limited amount of cards in our hand. So just taking the game a bit slower is just going to super favor us. Like, we have Pidgeot in play, and Pidgeot will always win a stalemate. There is nothing you can do to just, like, buy a turn against Pidgeot, because I will always have the answer.
Yes. So this here is the play that, again, I think people were a bit confused by, where you go Nest Ball for the Blood Moon. Now, having Blood Moon in the deck here is just so strong at breaking these late game stalemates to where we both tend to slow down a bit. We've both had a bit of back and forth of either stopping each other from doing things or, you know, building up our own board and then having it be knocked down, to where actually we just want a quick, efficient attacker that will win the game for us. And I really like the fact that you went Crispin, one onto the Rotom, one onto the Blood Moon, and took a prize with the Rotom. So if we just want to pause again quickly here, just to explain how we've pretty much won the game from this position.
Yeah.
We're now at 2 prize cards remaining. Our opponent is at 3 prize cards remaining. And because they don't play their own copy of Briar, they can't steal the game from us. They have to take 2 more knockouts in order to win this game. And because we have Pidgeot in play and a Blood Moon with an energy on it also in play, there is essentially almost nothing they can do to stop us from winning the game.
Yeah, this is
because
straight up checkmate.
They have 2 lines of play that they tend to gravitate towards here. Line number 1, which would probably be the best line in this scenario, would be to knock out the Pidgeot and, if possible, maybe try and disrupt you a bit, maybe bump the stadium or play an Iono and a counter catcher to KO the Pidgeot with the Pikachu. And that would be quite difficult for us because that would mean we would need to find a gust option to be able to win the game with Blood Moon. Now, if the Pidgeot remains untouched, we just have game, because no matter what they knock out, whether it be a 1 prizer, say they knock out a 1 prizer, they're now at 2 prize cards remaining, we quick search for boss, we Blood Moon, we win the game.
And the boss
If they knock out a 2 prizer, like Wellspring or Blood Moon, they're now at 1 prize card remaining. If they knocked out the Blood Moon, we go quick search for Stretcher, and we win the game with Blood Moon. Obviously, if we are staring down a Pikachu, then we might need to go Stretcher and perhaps Counter Catcher to gust one of those 2 prizes on the bench and announce Blood Moon. But all in all, our board here, by simply having Pidgeot and Blood Moon, means no matter what our opponent does, we have game on board.
That's exactly my thought process. Like, if the Blood Moon goes down, I have a game with Jewel Seeker for my Stretcher Counter Catcher. There is nothing they can do to play around that. And I know for a fact he doesn't play Counter Catchers, so it's not possible for him to both kill my Pidgeot and disrupt me in this turn. So this is genuinely a 0% win for my opponent. There is nothing he can do, and this is just game.
Essentially, yes. Let's watch it play out and let's just see where we go to, just to show how we have essentially checkmated our opponent.
Yeah.
We can see here that they're sort of a bit hesitant with the decisions that they're making, thinking, you know, what's my best line of play here? How can I win the game in 2 attacks, but also stop my opponent from winning the game in 1 attack? Which we see here. They play the Earthen Vessel, they grab the Grass Energy, try and find something useful off of that Teal Dance. But it doesn't really look like it's going to save them at this point in time, because as we've said, we can do pretty much anything to win the game at this point.
Like, Colin went up to me after the match asked me, is there anything I could have done better? Is there any play that I could have made that could have made it better for me in this game? And honestly, I just had to tell him no. He played to his outs almost perfectly. Like, I didn't see any obvious misplays from his side, and I didn't see any obvious lines that he should have taken instead. This was just a masterclass in how the matchup breaks down and why the matchup is favored for the Flareon side.
Yes, and sometimes it does just go like that, to where there was genuinely nothing you could have done better. We just played the better deck, we drew well enough, and we played to our correct outs, and we won the game because of it. As you can see here, we have the boss for the Blood Moon for the game. Here we go. So, this matchup here, we do not start off very well. We start Wellspring, Attach, Pass. That is not what we want to be doing. That is not fun for us.
Not even remotely. Like, I've seen a lot of different Eevee lists play, like, up to 9 energies, and my most common complaint when I heard other pilots going like, oh no, you play so few energies, only 7. But do you know what I have in hand every single game I Omega Brick? Multiple energies.
Yes.
So, with our build, we just don't play more than we need. We play the exact amount we need for the deck, and not one more, not one less.
Yes, I think 7 energy is the absolute correct version of the deck. But in actuality, it's not that different from every other variant of the deck that plays Sylveon and Clefairy and Ordinary Rod and all of those cards that we don't play in this deck. Because we don't need to play them. At the end of the day, both variants play 2 fire, 2 water, 2 lightning, 1 grass, and that's all you really need.
Yeah. Like,
so
especially with
here's one that
Mm-hmm.
Here's one that I'd like you to explain for me as to why we're playing the Jack here when we're under item lock and we don't really have much else going on for us right now. Why are we playing the Jack, Emma?
To thin the deck and to put cards that I don't want to see after an Iono in our hands. Like, I already have a Noctowl in hand, so I'm fine just thinning the deck for 2 cards and seeing if I have a way back into this game.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a very good idea. Just to say, we are fine with thinning our deck, just trying to find all the good cards, and hopefully trying to make a way into this game for us.
Keep in mind that this is a game I'm only playing because of Top Cut rules. Like, if we are in Swiss, then this is a game I probably would have conceded already. Because this is a matchup that typically takes a lot longer than every other matchup.
Yes, just because their deck is full of single prize Pokemon, to where we do have to take 6 prize cards on 6 1 prize Pokemon.
Maybe not. They do play Blood Moon as Luna.
Maybe.
See, this is where this pays off, where I did the Jack for cards I didn't need, and now I get Iono'd into some new cards. Like, if I would have drawn into Flareon or Leafeon here, it would have been a disaster. Instead, I draw into Countercatcher and still disaster. Countercatcher Noctowl, baby. But, like, the way Pokemon as a skill-based game works is that it's typically very easy to win the games where you're ahead the entire game. You just need to not screw up. But in games like this, you need to play exceptionally well to be able to have a way back into the game. So these are typically my favorite games to play.
And one thing that a lot of people will say to you is play to your outs. You look at your hand, you look at the outs that you have and the outs that you don't have as well, and you say, all right, how do I make this work? Let's, not just completely play things for no reason, but let's think about how we do this.
Like, some people might think the Fez bench here is weird because it takes Froslass pings. The casters pointed it out that they didn't like benching the Fez here in this situation, but my win condition here is being Iono'd into even better cards. And if I am being Iono'd, I want access to the Fez on the board. But if I don't get Iono'd, I lose the game regardless. So I'm playing to win, not to not lose.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to distinguish, is that we are playing to win. We are not playing to not lose. We want to make the plays that win us the game, not the plays that slow down our own loss. Because in game 1 of Top Cut, we don't really need to be slowing down our own loss, because all that's going to do is just come back to hurt us later on in the game, where we might start running down the clock.
Like, this is a type of situation where some people would just straight up slow play as slow as possible, because if we go into Top Cut rules and the winner is decided by the one with the least amount of prize cards left, I am always winning that. But personally, that's just not something I'm about, so I don't slow down my pace of play. We've spent 7 minutes and we're halfway through the game. This is not a match that is going to time or gonna come even close to time. Like, despite my deck really enjoying going to time against this matchup.
Yeah. So walk us through why you've got the cards that you got off of your Jewel Seeker.
My hand is dead. I have nothing else I can do, so I have to play to capitalize on my opponent's mistake. And the way I do that is by setting up my board to be able to utilize an Iono. So like here I have the Hoothoot, when I take it out of the discard pile, and I have my attackers already ready and set up. And if he does decide to kill my Hoothoot, I get to draw cards with Fez. So I've set up everything I need. I just need to essentially get lucky.
Yes, and sometimes luck does play a part in that. But I think you mentioned about if your opponent were to take the knockout on the Hoothoot, you could draw with Fez. If they don't take the knockout on the Hoothoot, yay, we have a Hoothoot that can evolve.
Yeah.
But, our opponent's not going to let us do that. They're just going to take the knockout on the Hoothoot, and that means we get to draw cards with Fez.
And crucially, I grabbed the 70 HP Hoothoot in this situation. It's a Nest Ball. You might be tempted to grab the 80 HP Hoothoot because it's still in the deck, but that would be a massive misplay, because this is a deck where they play Froslass, and you don't get to draw cards off of Flip the Script if something dies to Froslass. And the 80 HP Hoothoot does have an ability, so it will turn off your own Fez on purpose. That's bad.
Yes, so obviously the 80 HP Hoothoot would take 20 from the Risky Ruins. Then all your opponent would need to do is they have a Froslass tick going into their turn. They push exactly 4 damage counters to it. They have a Froslass tick going into your turn, and all of a sudden you don't get Fez and you've just lost a Hoothoot, which is not great.
I want to highlight that I did ask Frank if he drew the lilies off the prize cards, and he did in fact do so. It's very silly to not play the lilies before you take the KO with Eternal Brain, so I just want to make sure that people know that he didn't actively throw.
Yes. But we see here now the Hoothoot actually coming down onto the field.
I drew into it manually, and I didn't have access to another Hoothoot. At this point, I don't really care about the prizes, but I want to actively keep the damage away from my Leafeon. My Leafeon is my way back into this game, so what I'm saying is that you need to spend double Monkey Dory to get rid of this Hoothoot, and you're not allowed to put too much damage on my Leafeon.
Yeah. So as you can see here, it's also limiting the amount of damage that can actually be taken off of Frank's board and be put onto your board, because we have to let that Hoot Hoot be knocked out from the Froslass tick, because obviously if it's knocked out in between in the actual turn, then we get flip the script. But as you can see here, it's being knocked out by Froslass, which means no flip the script for us.
Exactly. And this is
so this game.
This isn't really a matchup I care about prizes at all. So I just like feed the opponent prizes. Their Ionos get worse. My Blood Moon becomes a better attacker, and I just get to keep the damage off the places I want the damage off.
Yes. And all we really want to be doing here is we just want to be slow rolling away and eventually getting into our Leafeon. Because in a deck that puts a lot of damage counters on our board, taking off all of those damage counters is quite good.
It is, yeah. Crucially, what you see here is that Frank is taking 2 prizes and going down to 2 prizes left. So this means that a Blood Moon just is game for him. So at this point, my way back into the game is over. My opponent has not the checkmate yet, but the closest he can to a checkmate. He essentially has a guaranteed checkmate in 2. Which I take a little bit of time to mull over, just see if my Fez cards do anything, if my top deck does anything. But as you see...
Off and off the top, doesn't seem too great for us. We're already down quite a few Hoot Hoots.
Yep.
What we hit off the Fez, not too much relevance. We see a Crispin. But does that get us any closer to winning the game? No, it doesn't.
So I can see the game on, like, the last turn I was able to have a way back into the game.
Yes.
That match took a total, or that game took a total of 12 minutes. So it wasn't really...
What do we think? What do we think would have happened had we managed to get back into the game on that turn? Let's say we had a way to move the Fez out of the active, put the Leafeon up, and put a fully charged Moss Gate knockout. How would we then go about the game from there? Because that Leafeon already had, I believe it was 13 damage counters on it. And if we're knocking out that Maractus, then that's another 6 counters on us, which means they'd only need to put 8 more damage counters on it to knock it out, which is quite easy for them to do.
Yeah, no, that was just a game.
Did not seem too great for us. But
I
that
would have
happens sometimes.
Had a counter catcher to do anything and hope that his Blood Moon was prized. If those 2 things happened specifically in that turn, then it was possible for me to come back.
Possible, yes. Not probable, but possible.
It would have allowed me to get rid of one of his monkeys while also keeping the damage off my Leafeon from the Maractus.
Yes. We can see here, we go first, as normal.
Yeah.
Looks like we have an okay starting hand. You know, we have the Eevee, we have the Ultra Ball, so that's an out to our fan Rotom.
We have the Serrano.
Deciding. Yes, we have the Serrano. Now, here's a really interesting one. We've gone Ultra Ball away, Pidgeot, and Night Stretcher blind. Can you sort of walk us through why you did that?
My hand is very resource intensive. Like, I have 6 cards in hand that I really don't want to be discarding. Like, I need the Serrano for next turn to set up, and the rest of my hand, I don't remember what it was. I think it was Crystal or something like super important that I can't discard. So my thought process is that this is not a matchup where I need access to Stretcher at all. So I will bin the Stretcher and I will bend the Pidgeot and just give myself access to Stretcher Candy Pidgeot if I ever need to do that.
Yes, that seems like quite a good idea. But as you can see here, obviously we don't immediately go for the Pidgey because our Pidgeot is in the discard it would be quite resource intensive for us to try and set up a Pidgeot next turn. And actually, we'd rather just have 2 Hoots just to get us into playing the game.
I'm fairly certain I have. Actually, no, never mind. This is a matchup where they Bidoo, so we don't really ever get the turn to Candy Pidgeot anyways, so it's not a priority to set up.
No. So that sort of gives a bit more context as to why we're okay with discarding Pidgeot so early. Just because in this matchup, do we really need Pidgeot, but can we really afford to attempt to set up Pidgeot?
Exactly, that is the question. And in most games of this matchup, that answer is going to be no, because it's very difficult for us to be able to get the Candy Pidgeot early, and mid-game, they just double up Drain to kill the Pidgey at any point. So this matchup is close purely because of item lock. Like, if we had access to the turn to Candy Pidgeot every game, we would win every game.
Yes. And that's why the Dragapult matchup is quite shaky for us. Because if we somehow had Pidgeot up every single matchup against Dragapult, we'd probably win most of those games. Because, funnily enough, when you put a Pidgeot into play, there is a very good chance that you win that game.
I think my win rate with Pidgeot in play is between 80 and 90%. Like, I typically tell people if they ask questions about the deck, if you manage to put Pidgeot in play and you lose the game, it should be your fault. You made a mistake either because you overextended to get the Pidgeot and didn't take the turn to like in a good enough tempo, or you missed the line where you could come back with the help of Pidgeot.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds about right. I think it's just so important to stress how good Pidgeot is, really.
The casters are very confused about this grabbing of Crystal Crispin, and they're being like, oh, are we going to see Crown Opal? Obviously, we're not going to see Crown Opal. We're gonna beat down, and we're going to attach the crystal to Eevee, because Leafeon's attack is actually very intensive. Mossagate requires grass, water, fire, and especially the grass is quite difficult to find, and to find all 3 of them in that combination can be quite challenging. So just already having the crystal prepared so that we only need 2 out of those 3 just makes it a lot easier for us to charge up the Mossagate.
Yes, and it's important to note as well that it can be 2 of any color of energy, obviously aside from lightning, but now rather than saying, oh, well, I've attached a water, so I need to find a grass and a fire, or a grass and crystal, or a fire and crystal, I've attached my crystal, I just need to find 2 in any combination of grass, fire, water, and then I have Leafeon.
Yeah, and this is a matchup where if you get Mossagate into play early, as long as you don't never draw anything aside from that, you should very easily take over the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in this matchup, as long as our Leafeon is up and rolling and we're consistently, healing all of our damage off, we shouldn't ever really be in too much trouble.
I also want to highlight something about Frank's deck. This is a Mega Evolution early release event. The Terabox opponent I played didn't really play any Mega cards. He played 1 Lilies. I don't play any Mega Evolution cards. Don't need them in the deck. Same 60 at Pittsburgh. Good is good, don't change it. But from Froslass Monkidori, you get 2 very major upgrades. Lily's Determination is amazing in a deck where you don't take early prizes, and Risky Ruins is silent but very, very good card for the archetype, because you typically struggle with getting damage in play if you don't have Froslass, but having access to Risky Ruins both allows you to get your damage into play for Munkidori and puts damage into play for your opponent. Crucially, it also affects when you Nest Ball and Buddy Puffin.
And that's one of the big things that we see about Risky Ruins is with cards like Team Magma Base and Gapejaw Bog, those cards would only work when you would directly put the Pokemon onto the bench. But Risky Ruins is completely different, and it doesn't matter where that Pokemon comes from. If it hits the bench, you're putting 2 damage counters on it.
Yeah. Like you saw my confusion with it in game 1, where it took a long time for my Noctowl and my Eevee to take damage off of it. You're going to see some confusion about it in game 2 as well, because it's just such a strange card. I'm very used to playing with Team Magma, Secret Base, and Gapejaw Bog. Those cards make sense in my mind. But because this card is so different, you're just going to see a bunch of like, oh yeah, no, they're supposed to take damage, or this isn't supposed to take damage, and la-di-da.
Yeah. So let's just discuss why the Night Stretcher for the Shaman was played here. Because by the looks of it, we have 2 energy on our Terapagos. We have an energy and a crystal on our Leafeon. Both water energy are already on the board, as is the crystal. We're not really going to be Wellspringing this game. You know, we're not really going to be announcing Torrential Pump, given this board state. So why do you think the Night Stretcher was for the Shaman?
I mean, crucially, I played Frank in Swiss as well. He was my only loss in Swiss. And he knew about my energy switch. So this is a board where I can play down Area 0, play down Wellspring, Dual Seeker for Crispin plus energy switch, and get off the Torrential Pump if I want to. I don't really want to in this situation, but it's certainly a very powerful option. And
yeah,
he wants to have access to the Shaman anyways, so might as well just grab it now that he has it.
Yes, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize is one of the strengths of the current iteration of Flareon, to where we can just spawn in any attacker we want with Crispin, Energy Switch, Trumpet, Crystal. No matter what it is, no matter what the attack cost is, we can probably materialize that attacker in 1 turn.
Yeah. Like, there is not a single attacker we can't charge up in 1 turn in this deck. Except Bloodmoon when your opponent hasn't taken prices. That's... Actually? No, we can get 4 energies on it in 1 turn, but we can't get the 5th.
Yes. But, yes, cards like Flareon and Leafeon, for example, there are a lot of scenarios where you'll bench that boosted evolution Eevee, you'll play Glass Trumpet, and then you'll play Energy Switch or Crystal, and then you'll manually attach, then you'll put that Eevee into the active, and you'll evolve it straight away, and boom, there's your attacker.
Yeah,
so
and crucially,
being able to just do that.
Supporter. So you're able to Boss or Briar or Black Belt in the same turn.
Yeah, and that's why the list is built in the way it is, to say we can spawn in an attacker and we can do it for a relatively low cost, and we can still use a supporter in the same turn.
Yeah, wouldn't call it too low of a cost, but it's kind of like going to a casino and gambling. Like, sure, you might have to spend a lot of money to make a lot of money if you're good at it, but we also have a just infinite amount of money in our deck. We just get so much access to so many resources when we have a good setup.
We really do.
Yeah.
And that's why we play all of these little one-off cards that, you know, on their own may not be too strong, but in conjunction with all of the other cards in our deck, they all complement each other so well to where we can fire off attacks at any point.
Exactly.
So we see here, we're sort of deciding, okay, what goes into the active spot? What are we doing? We have the Snow Run coming up. and it's just a case of where does Frank take this game? What is his line back into the game, and what is your line to stop him from doing that?
I mean, so far in the game, he's just like Omega behind. He has taken one prize, has a very minimal amount of damage in play. He doesn't have an answer to Leafeon, and he especially doesn't have an answer to both Leafeon and Terabox. So in general, there's kind of not that much he can do.
Yeah, we see him reading the Leafeon now. I love it whenever someone reads the Leafeon and the look on their face to a look of confusion turning into terror is always so fun to see, as they just read the card and see, this completely screws me.
Nathan, did you see what happened to the bench just now?
I did see what happened to the bench. Why are there damage counters on your Pokemon when there is no Risky Ruins in play, Emma?
Because the judges gave me the dice, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it's not possible to have Risky Ruins and 8 Pokemon in play.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm sure that'll get corrected.
Okay. It's just funny because we were 2 judges, 2 players, and just no one of us even like paid attention to it, and we have to get stopped by Natalie and just like take this off, please.
Yeah, the funny thing about being a stream judge is that there are things that you should spot, but sometimes for some reason you just don't spot them.
Yeah, you've been a stream judge a lot. Like, I've only had one official stream game, and you were sitting next to me at that game.
Yes, and I think there were probably times where we may have both missed something. So it really is so difficult to, when there are so many moving pieces, to keep track of absolutely everything.
I remember in this situation, Andrew and JW, maybe Riley, I don't know who was casting, but they were pointing it out and saying that this doesn't work, and they were phoning the ground team. And typically in these situations, you often get a little bit of help from Twitch chat as well, because if something like this happens, they will spam the chat and saying, this is not allowed.
They tend to do that anyway, but sometimes they're right.
I'm just going to say a bit of a spoiler, that in the finals, Twitch chat gives us a false positive for that.
That doesn't surprise me.
No.
They do like doing that. But yes, back
what do you
to
feel about
the game that we see at the moment.
That's what
it looks like Frank is just so far behind with everything that's going on. You know, he's playing a Precious Trolley for 2. There's not really much more he can do to stop you from taking these last 2 prize cards. There's so little damage on your board. It's going to be so difficult for him to find a way to take 4 prize cards before you take 2.
And like
it just looks like
he even did Adrenaline onto Fanrotom to kill it just to get access to a prize card. He's that desperate at this point.
Yes. We see here the Maractus. Maybe just try and buy some time, counter catcher, and just, hope that we have enough time to re-establish a board, put some more damage counters on with that Froslass, and just hope to eventually chip away at you. But something tells me that's not going to work that well.
But I want you to pay close attention to the next turn specifically, because I make one of the 2 misplays I make this tournament.
Okay, let's see what's coming up then.
I'm
so
just
we
going
can
to tell
see
you
here...
that Frank has way more of a way into this game than he ever should have. But I'll let the game speak for itself next turn.
Okay. So we can see here the corner from the Maractus, just trying to stall out that Latias, add some more Froslass ticks to the board. and just try and, slow you down as much as possible. Why have you just announced Flip the Script, Emma?
Because he killed Fanraton with Adrenaline.
He did. That feels so long ago that we almost don't recognize it.
Well, I was very aware of when my opponents took a KO and when the Froslass did. So that was something that was on my mind all the time.
We see here the Nest Ball for the Wellspring, the Jewel Seeker. What are we going to grab? We're going to grab Crispin Energy Switch. And this is, look at that. We have the Crispin, we have the Energy Switch. We've got 3 energy on our board. And we have the Switch. Switch into the Wellspring, into that. And the Shaman's in play.
Yep, the Shaman's in play. The casters were shaming me for this.
Uh-oh.
Which they have good reason to. Like, this is potentially a match-losing situation because I assume I have the win. I just put it down, show it to my opponent. He doesn't concede. I look at the board again and just go, oh, the Shaman is there. That's why he doesn't concede. And then I would think like, okay, what's the best play with this position, with the Wellspring inactive? It's to clear the damage from my board,
definitely,
and just take the KO.
Yes, definitely not shuffling the energies back in, because a lot of people do forget this, but the second effect of Torrential Pump, the sniping the bench, isn't mandatory. It is optional, and you can choose to not do it, just do 100 damage and leave the energy on the Ogre Bomb, which is what we've chosen to do here.
So if I would have shuffled the energies back in, that would have given Frank a massive opportunity to just steal this game. But because I was still aware of the game and didn't just completely autopilot, I was able to take a look at the board and identify that this is not what I thought it was. But so now that I have the energies still in play, it's a lot easier for me to come back.
Yes, we do see that counter capture onto the Blood Moon there, just trying to, again, another move from Frank, just to try and buy as much time as possible, spread as much damage onto your board, try and pick up those last 4 prize cards. But there we are, again, another research for 7. But with you only having 1 prize card left, what can he really do?
Nothing. I have Kieran in hand.
You do indeed have Kieran in hand.
And I just want to shout out Frank for his play in this tournament, because going into this match, my record in games is 15-2. I have won like every single game except to Frank, who 2-1'd me. And then he won game 1. At that point, my score against Frank is 1-3 going into game 2.
And this matchup, although it's not a matchup that we think about very much, the Badu Froslass matchup, it is not actually as great for us as we'd like it to be. Obviously, things like Leafeon and Wellspring do help us a lot in this matchup, but it's getting there in the first place that tends to be the difficult thing.
Exactly. Like, they just play so much disruption and so much ability to kill our Hootoots that they have a real chance of just never allowing a Leafeon EX to hit the board and to attack with Muscle Gates. Like, if we announce the attack once, we typically win the game. I did have...
And this has been made slightly harder by taking out the Colourful Friends Eevee and only playing the Eevee EX and the Boosted Evolution Eevee, which means that we either have to let the Eevee EX take some Froslass ticks, take a bit of damage before we evolve it up into Leafeon, which softens it up, makes it easier to take down, or we have to go Boosted Evolution straight up into the Leafeon, which under Badu Lock early game and then mid-game pressure is not the easiest thing to do.
It doesn't really work, no. I crucially had a game in Swiss against Frank where I had Leafeon announcing Mossegate and was just running away with it a little bit. But I had both Area 0 priced, and I wasn't able to establish a second attacker. So what he did is that he Iono Blood Moon and killed my Leafeon and won the game because I didn't have access to a second attacker.
So I'm curious on
insane.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit curious on the logic behind playing the Poffin before Fang calling, which is, it's not a massive thing that really matters in the grand scheme of things. It's just a case of, would you rather Fang call, check your deck, grab your targets, and then Poffin? Or would you rather Poffin, grab stuff, and then if there aren't too many good targets left for Fang call, maybe Fang call for some less good targets and have the Poffin be spent? Or would you rather Fang call early and perhaps even conserve the Poffin?
There is zero use to conserve the Poffin. I have most of my Pokemon that I can grab off of Poffin just already in play. And here I grab the Fan Rotom and just use the Ultra Ball because I'm going to be under item lock. So what happens there is that I just don't really have a reason to ever save the Poffin, so I just go with the Poffin and use my Fan Call for more expendable targets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a matchup like this, where you can be item locked, that is probably the best course of action, to just get all your item cards, play them as fast as possible, because you're not going to be playing them past that first turn of the game, at least for a little while. So just set up a good board. Maybe, again, as you say, Fang call for an expendable target, something that you can just burn off the Ultra Ball, and play the game from there.
With this hand, I have basically pseudo game in hand. I have the turn 2 Mossegate available with my hand. So I'm basically forcing Frank to play Iono. And turn 1, he doesn't really want to play Iono, especially with my free card hand. He would much rather play Arven for Trolley or Lilies for 8. So with doing this line, I also get to pseudo stunt his setup.
Yes, because although you only have 3 cards in hand, he knows that there is a Noctowl in your hand. He knows that there is a Leafeon in your hand. And even those 2 cards in hand, that is not great for him.
Yeah, and now I force him to burn the second Pokégear to hurt his consistency late game too, to try to find the Iono. Then it would put his Lilies on the bottom of the deck if he hits it. So this is just a very good line for me.
I suppose that is an interesting sequencing decision from Frank. I suppose maybe did he already have a draw supporter in hand before he got the Lily off the Pokégear? No. Because if he did, I probably wouldn't have even got the Lily. I would have just kept the Lily in the deck and then played my other draw supporter in hand. But if he had nothing else, then getting Lily seems like a good idea, just to give yourself that safety net.
As a judge, I want your opinion on the way I do Iono, because the way I do it is that I always announce the amount of cards I put on the bottom, and I always put the cards slightly ahead of the rest of my deck, so it's very easy to see which cards are from the Iono and which cards are the rest of my deck.
Yeah, so the putting cards ahead, that's completely fine. That isn't really, too much of a worry. But announcing how many cards are going to the bottom of your deck from the Iono is something that everybody should be doing.
Yeah.
I always do it. I think that all of my opponents, I try and encourage all of my opponents to do it. It helps so much of the time, because you never know when you're going to need to call for that judge and say, oh, sorry, judge, we've made a mistake. But I don't know how many cards went underneath the bottom of my deck from the Iono, so we can't restore the game state from there.
Exactly.
But if you make a mistake and you call the judge over and say, hi, judge, this happened, we need to do this. This many cards went under the deck from my Iono. The judge can probably fix it from there.
Typically, yeah. So I think I actually learned that from you, like back in the day, like 2023 season or something. That wasn't something I was thinking about because Iono was such a new card and everyone just played it like normally. But as we get used as a community to the effect of a card, we also get used to seeing how Iono can just destroy a game by making an irreversible game state. So this is just something to proactively just make sure I don't do that.
So this is something really interesting here. So you put the Pidgey down on turn 1, and you're now playing the Serrano, and you're putting that Pidgeot into hand. Basically saying to Frank, you need to either Iono me again, or you need to knock out this Pidgey, otherwise there is going to be a Pidgeot hitting my board.
Yeah, and crucially, he both doesn't have Double Dark to get rid of my Pidgey. Also, I did grab the Versatility as well, so if he were to kill my Pidgey, I get access to Versatility.
Yes, and here we see the Jack. Again, a lot of people ask the question, why are we playing Serrano and Jack in the deck? Because, you know, on the surface, they seem like quite similar cards. You know, they grab Pokemon, they both grab Pokemon, but the actual reasons that we have them in there are so different, to where Serrano is just early game consistency, lets you grab your Pokemon that you need, like Pidgeot, Flareon, Versatility, Leafeon in this scenario, and it's just a really good early game way of setting up.
Exactly.
But Jack is entirely different, because sure, you can play it early game if you need to maybe grab like Pidgeot Flareon or Pidgeot Noctowl or Flareon Noctowl or something like that. But actually, he is just there to get Noctowls when you need them. He is essentially the 5th Noctowl and also the 6th Noctowl.
Yeah, like the thing about this deck is that it does play a lot of one-offs. It plays a lot of cards that can be quite devastating if you prize them, but the thing about the list is that it's built in such a way that you have the redundancy, that you have a replacement effect for most things that you need. So like you have multiple different ways of accelerating energies. You have double Crispin, you have double Boss, you have double Countercatcher, because those are your most important cards. And if your Serrano is priced, you can always Jack for Flareon Pidgeot and Jewel Seeker for Jack Candy to set up a good play. If your Kieran is priced, you can use the Black Belt instead. And you just have a lot of those types of considerations when we were building the deck. So despite being almost a GLC deck, we don't really get that destroyed by bad pricing.
You have a lot of cards that are one-offs, but you also have a lot of cards that are very functionally similar to one another, to where, you know, you have Serrano and Jack, you have Kieran and Black Belt, you have Energy Switch and Trumpet. Those cards are all very functionally similar to one another. They serve different purposes, but in a pinch, they can serve somewhat similar purposes when you need them to.
Exactly. And this is the game where I put my this is the turn where I put my opponent in check.
Yes, we see here there is no Itchy Pollen this turn, so that means we are free to put our Pidgeot into play.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have Pidgeot in play, and we have a fully powered up Leafeon on the board, we have a backup attacker ready to go on the board, we are probably not ever losing the game from this position. You know, we have another Noctowl ready to go. We have, again, we see that Pidgeot, Versatility, Hoot Hoot on the board, just to say, no matter what you do, no matter what you knock out, I will have an answer.
Like, that's what I mean by calling this check. Like, the opponent can technically play Devo, but then we get both our Noctowls back into hand, and at that point their disruption is so weak, and there's just so many ways we can mitigate that by just having access to 4 Noctowl in our deck. So there's really just shutting the door on Frank for being able to get a good comeback in this game.
Yes. Now, something that I would like to point out, just while we're looking at this board state here, is that one of the main reasons why we play Kieran over Professor Turo is, of course, for the ability to do 30 more damage, but also in situations like this, to where your opponent could go, let's Maractus, bring up the Pidgeot, and corner it. Because then you look at that and you go, well, I don't really want to Turo my Pidgeot, so I guess I'm just going to have to spend my switch and switch this Pidgeot out. But by doing that, you then become so weak to future corners. And you only really have one switch out. But by playing the Kieran, you have 2 cards in your deck that say the word switch. And this is what we mean about having cards that are functionally similar, but serve different purposes, where we have 2 switches in our deck if we need it.
Another example is Grass Energy and Crystal. If you're in a matchup where you need access to Leafeon, you have 2 ways of powering it up. So pricing the Grass Energy is not too much of an issue. Having to commit to your Crystal early is not too much of an issue, because you just get to play the game so well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can see here that Frank is working his way out of check. He is going to try and Devo, but because that Leafeon evolved from the Eevee EX, it's not going to go down to a Devo. And all Frank is really doing here, sure, he's taking the Pidgeot off the board, but he's giving you another Noctowl to work with. He's giving you 2 Noctowl to work with even, which just becomes so good for us.
I want to talk about this because here he chooses to kill the Pidgey. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, on the surface, it makes sense because you take the Pidgeot off the board, and that's really good for you because then you work your way out of the check and you say, right, I can probably start wiggling my way back into this game if I can disrupt you a bit, stall you a little bit, maybe just try and, get you to a point where I've exhausted enough of your resources to where I can maybe steal the game from you. But on the other side of the coin, he's just taken a knockout that will allow you to use Flip the Script, and he's just given you access to 2 Noctowls.
Yeah.
That does not seem like it's going to be very good for him. That seems like it's going to be very good for you.
Personally, I think the Devo play itself is fine, but killing the Pidgey while doing the Noctowl play, or doing the Devo play, is the biggest misplay he's made against me in all 6 of our games. Because watch what happens now.
Yes. Yes, because the thing about the deck is that you only play 1 Pidgey, 1 Rare Candy, 1 Pidgeot. So once that Pidgey goes up, if it comes back down, it's not going back up again. There's absolutely no reason to worry about it when it's just a Pidgey again. Because you know that that Pidgey can't then become a Pidgeot again after the Devo.
Exactly. We do a little
but again,
flip in the script.
We see the Flip the Script here. And he's also just freed up a bench space for you, which is great for you, because if you were to get something like a Latias here, suddenly everything on your field can move freely. There we go. There's the Latias.
You now have commentating with you. You just know exactly what I'm about to do.
Exactly. You just have the Latias, and you have a board full of basic Pokemon that can just move freely and free retreat and not really get trapped. Unless they get specifically cornered, those Pokemon are going to move however they want.
Now it's just I have 8 basic Pokemon on my bench. I have Latias in play. I have 3 prices left. I have not used Switch. I have not used Kieran. I have plenty of energy in left. I have Crispin left in deck. This is just the fact that he decided to kill the Pidgey just opened up the door for so many lines for me. Like, what I would have much rather seen is countercatcher the Noctowl that had the 80 HP Hooted underneath, move the damage onto Leafeon or something. The Leafeon is the correct play, and just Devo. Now I have full bench, 8 bench Pokemon, a Pidgey that can never evolve. I have an 80 HP Hooted in the active, so that forces me to either switch Kieran, or to evolve the Noctowl and use a Crispin or a Manual Attach to retreat it. That makes sure that I have a Noctowl in play, which is by far the most trappable Pokemon that would be on my board if you did that play.
Yes. But no, as we see here, your board is just so difficult to do anything against, because he can't really trap that effectively. You know, we see him commit the attachment for turn hits for Monkey Dory, meaning that there's probably not going to be a corner announced this turn either. So it is really just going to be a case of, let's just try and, you know, flick across as much damage as we can and maybe try and make something happen. But again, he's got 5 prize cards left. You've just used Moss Agate, so your bench is pretty much fully healed. And your Leafeon is looking pretty healthy. You know, he's still got 220 HP left. That thing's not going down anytime soon unless a Blood Moon is hitting it.
Like, I have to give it to Frank. He plays perfect the rest of the game. He plays perfect most of the match. That is his big misplay. My big misplay was the Wellspring in game 2. We each do 1. We carry on. But
yes,
this game is by no means over for me. I have check. I have it like super close to being game, but it's not game. Frank does find a potential way back into this game. I want to hear if you can spot the line of how he would be able to do so.
Well, we can see the Blood Moon here. The thing about Blood Moon is that ordinarily it wouldn't be knocked out by your opponent's Blood Moon. But when we're dealing with Froslass here, that is a potential thing that can happen. So a line for Frank here could be something like Blood Moon and Blood Moon again, and then you would potentially struggle.
Yeah.
But it could also be just a way for him to go, okay, let's get this Leafeon off the board, let's deal with that, and let's just see what we can make work.
The casters were saying that the Blood Moon bench was weird, but you agree it's a very good bench, right? Because if he does,
it's a very good bench, because now he has to make the decision to say, well, if I Blood Moon, Emma's going to Blood Moon me, and that's not very good for me. But because you have put that Blood Moon onto your bench, he now has to deal with that. Because you have Latias in play, that Blood Moon's got no retreat cost. Again, it can just freely move wherever it wants to move.
Exactly.
So he is going to struggle a little bit here. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't take a knockout on that Blood Moon right here, right now, he has no way of getting back into the game. But if he does take a knockout on the Blood Moon, you're only 1 card away from winning the game anyway, because you've only got 2 prize cards left. You know, you could stretch your Blood Moon back, announce Blood Moon into his Blood Moon, and the Froslass ticks would take it down. Or you could find Kieran, for example, or Black Belt, and take the knockout with Moss Agate. So it's just a really strange one. I'm not entirely sure what Frank's line is into you anymore, now that the Blood Moon has hit your board.
I'll let the game speak for itself in that way, because I still have to take 2 prizes, which means there's 2 turns until I potentially would win the game. I put my opponent in check. It's not checkmate until I take the last prize. With this Iron Bundle, I think he was just hoping that I misplay, but I send up my other attacker that can free retreat. So that's not exactly an issue. Now he took his third prize, now he has 3 prizes remaining.
Yes, so all he needs to do is take a knockout on a 1 prize Pokemon and a 2 prize Pokemon, and then that's the game for him.
Crucially, if you take a look at his board, the Monkeydories have 60 damage on them in total, which means that he can move max 50 with his Monkeydories as they are, because it's not possible for him to move the 40 and then the 20. So he can't take a single prize turn this turn.
Yeah, and that's what you have prevented by, not putting down another Pokemon with an ability, just limiting your board and saying, right, well, I'm just going to stop you from running away with the game. I'm just going to play conservatively. I'm just going to slug through this game until eventually I just take all of my prize cards. And I'm going to stop you from, getting too far ahead of that.
Yeah. This is the single turn of the entire tournament that was best played by an opponent of mine.
So we see the Blood Moon come down on Frank's side, and we see, okay, he has a way into, knocking out your Leafeon. But then what happens from there? That's the interesting part that we're about to see unfold in front of us.
Yeah.
We can see the Iono's been played, and actually there's not too much else going on for Frank here. We can see that the Vessel is being played, potentially grabbing Dark Energy. But again, there is only 60 damage on Frank's board, which means that he can't push 70 across onto a Hoot to steal the game.
Yeah, regardless if you benches another Monkeydory, that's not enough. He could theoretically have it with Risky Ruins, Monkeydory Dark, but he Iono'd himself down to 3. That's not happening.
No. And the frustrating thing here about having a Blood Moon on the field when there is a Froslass in play, as I've said, is that Blood Moon can knock each other out now.
Yeah. The casters didn't talk about that at all, which is such an interesting part of this matchup, in my opinion, especially from the Froslass Monkeydories side, because despite their multiple Monkeydories, despite Adrenabrain healing the Blood Moon, they can never take it out of Blood Moon range.
No, because you have the Froslass tick, 10 going into your turn, you do the 240, and then the Froslass tick takes it down between turns.
He passes the turn.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting play to make. However, you do have some counterplay.
I have infinite outs. Kieran is game, Black Belt is game, any basic Pokemon is game, Noctowl is game, and Crispin is game. So
yes,
most
you
of
do
my
have
deck
a lot of
is
outs.
Game, but he played to his outs insanely well. There are very few Monkeydory Froslass pilots in the world that would be able to recognize this line of just being able to buy a turn and having checkmate against me in that game. He was not supposed to be even close to winning that game, but he found the line that gives him a real shot at it.
I think the Blood Moon pass there was so important to where if, he just announces pass, he doesn't take any knockouts, you have to play a card to be able to win the game.
And from an Iono to 1, that's not guaranteed. Regardless of how many tens of outs, how 2/3 of my deck is game, it doesn't really matter if I don't end up drawing into them. European giant versus American child. It's very impressive that he gets to this point. There are a lot of good players in the room. Danny Barr is Ben Moores, I've heard good things about. Jesse Parker is here. Emma Hagen is here. Kevin Kruger has won the Limitless Invitational. Like, there is a lot of good players in the room, but Remy, I think he's recently a senior, mostly a junior division player, is able to comb through all that competition and just get to the finals.
Yeah. So we see here an absolutely phenomenal opening turn from you. You have the Flareon straight up, you have the energy attachment, and you have the Poffin. So no matter what Remy comes up with here, you're probably okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why even when staring down a Frillish, which can be quite dangerous for us, again, item locking us, sort of putting the Pidgey into play a bit hesitant, you immediately go for the Pidgey and you say, do what you want. My hand is so good that I can afford to do this.
Yeah, and crucially, this is the second game in a row where I fan call for fan rotom. Like, that is not supposed to happen often, but because I just drew multiple basics and a Buddy Poffin in both games, it's just like, fine. I get to play around Iono by putting a bad card into my hand and having essentially just everything I need in hand already.
Yeah, I think it is important to say that, again, you see Remy here going for the Iono, but you've just put a bad card into your hand, meaning it's more likely for you to draw good cards off of that Iono, which is why, just fan calling for a junk card isn't really too bad, because next turn, even if you hadn't been Iono'd, you could do something like, assuming you weren't under item lock like you're about to be, Ultra Ball it away.
Like, I knew I was going to be under item lock, and my loss condition in this situation is Iono into a dead hand. So rather than grabbing the second Noctowl and having a complete pop-off turn, I hedge against that and rather grab the Fan Rotom to make sure that if I'm in a bad situation, I maximize my outs by both having access to all three of the rest of the Noctowls in the rest of my cards and taking away a bad card.
And this is just a general thing that I'd like to say about Eevees, is that on your opening turn, you should not ever be ending your turn with a number of cards that are Noctowl or Noctowl equivalent that is not 1. You don't really want to be ending your turn with 0 Noctowl cards in your hand, but you also don't want to have more than 1, because you don't really ever need 2 Noctowl on turn 2. Sometimes you do, sometimes you need to, set up a huge, wombo combo turn 2 that puts you so far ahead. But often, the best play is to just have 1 Noctowl in your hand, do what you need to do with it the following turn, and protect yourself from any possible Ionos.
There is one notable exception, though, and that is when you're playing against the decks that you either know don't play Iono, or play 1 copy and they really, really, really don't want to play the Iono. So those decks are specifically Ceruledge and Goldengo Rocks. Because if they ever play Iono and Goldengo Rocks, they play 1-off, and they really don't want to play it turn 1. They want to Arven for Trolley and go kill you.
Gosh, absolutely. So we see here the Crispin. This should be a pretty straightforward Crispin. Yeah. We just grab our 2 energy. We grab our fire and our water. And obviously the fire goes to the Flareon. But I think it's important to state here that water also going to Flareon just means that we have Carnelian as a response. And we also see no energy going to the bench, because we don't need energy going to the bench at this point in the game. We're perfectly fine. We don't really have any targets that we want to Burning Charge to. And everything, on our board is pretty low maintenance. Like, if we were to find a way to put Latias into play, everything could free retreat. So Burning Charge for 0, just sort of leaving more energy in the deck for future Crispins. Seems pretty good.
And normally, I would Crispin for 2 energies, like Fire Lightning, put the Lightning into hand, and Burning Charge the water onto myself. But I already have a water energy in hand, so that's not needed. So I just Burning and Crispin for both.
I really like Remy's play here, though. Counter-capturing up the Pidgey and putting Monkey Dark in play means that if he can get into that Gardevoir, he can KO that Pidgey with a Frillish. Because he goes up into Gardevoir, he embraces 2 to it, he goes Frillish on the bench, retreat into the Frillish, move 30 off the Gardevoir onto the Pidgey, and Oceanic Bloom for the knockout on the Pidgey, which would put us in a less than ideal spot. But unfortunately for him, it doesn't look like he's able to do that.
No, like this looks like a silly play because he doesn't have the Candy Gardevoir. But as we were saying before, Remy is playing to win. He's not playing to not lose. And his loss condition in the matchup is Pidgeot being in play. If Pidgeot ever is in play, he loses the game on the spot. This matchup is like an 80-20 or like 85-15 if Pidgeot EX in play. The matchup feels like an auto win if you have access to Quick Search.
I feel like it's... Yeah.
In my opinion, this is game.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. I think it's really, really strong to just put the Pidgeot into play and say, you either deal with this or I'm going to do what I want. And, as you've already detailed previously, their win condition in the Gardevoir matchup is simply saying, okay, without Pidgeot in play, I can Iono, Countercatcher, Screamtail a Noctowl, Screamtail a Hoot Hoot even, and you don't really have much counterplay to that. But when we have a Pidgeot on the board, we just look at all of that and we say, that's cute, Quick Search.
And like with this setup, I have all the attackers I need ready for the game. I told you earlier I did 2 misplays in this tournament. The first one was the obvious Wellspring. The second one was not attaching the water energy from my hand to Eevee EX. That was just a mistake on my part. Because if I had done that, then I would have had a response to anything my opponent did, regardless if they Iono'd. Because if they take the KO with Gardevoir, then I just Gravity Mountain Carnelian KO. And if they take a KO with Mew, I just boss Gravity Mountain Carnelian KO. And then I'm at 2 prizes left, I have a Blood Moon in play, and there is a Mew on the opponent's side. So with just the attackers being in play, being must answer attackers, the opponent cannot afford to kill Pidgeot. So with just having 1 or 2 things I need every turn to be able to win the game just ensures that there is nothing my opponent can do.
Yeah. And this is just a general PSA to all the Gardevoir players out there. You might think that you're smart by loading up your Mew and announcing genome hacking for Carnelian and knocking out a Flareon. I promise you that you will almost certainly lose every game that you do this. Please do not do this. It is not good for you.
Like, the Gardevoir matchup is already like super favored if they don't play Jellicent, in my opinion. I know you're not as adamant about it as I am, but part of why the matchup feels completely free is because despite having played against some of the best Gardevoir pilots in Europe and in the world, I've never really seen a Gardevoir pilot play perfectly against Eevees.
No, but I think that stems from them just not understanding how to. Like, it's not a deck that you really think about going into a tournament. And the Gardevoir player often won't be aware of our lines and how our deck operates, especially as, we don't play Sylveon, we don't play Clefairy or any of the Psychic cards. We are just focused on attack, attack, attack.
Exactly. And it's also a double way to it because the average Gardevoir pilot both doesn't know my list, doesn't know what to play around. And Eevee's Flareon is also the deck in the format with the highest skill ceiling in the game. So being able to effectively play around everything Eevees can do is only something the absolute best players in the world can do right now.
It's like, for most decks, simply knowing what their plans are and what their general game plan is, what their general prize map is enough to play around it. But when you're playing against an Eevee player, if you don't know the Eevee player's lines, you're really going to struggle.
I've seen people make fun of the deck, like, oh, Eevees, that's just a junior player, only like women who don't play the game play Eevees. But it is a deck that can do anything at all times and just steamrolls anyone who's not prepared for it. So it is definitely not a deck to be taken lightly, and it is definitely not a deck where you can improvise a plan on the fly.
And we see here, it looks like Remy is putting that Mew into the active, and he is loading up that genome hacking. That is not something he wants to be doing. I can tell him right now that is not something he wants to do.
Yeah,
because we have a board that is Pidgeot, a Terra Pokemon that can be a Flareon, and 3 Hoot Hoot. So we are doing anything and everything we want this turn, which I don't know if you can tell, but we are going to take down that Gardevoir. That Gardevoir is no longer going to be sitting on Remy's bench after the end of this turn.
He might have a Curlier, but that doesn't matter because now there is a Mew in play, and that is basically game regardless of what you do.
Yes, there is a Mew in play, and you have 2 prize cards left. So it doesn't matter what Remy really does. We can just chase down that Mew, and we can do something like Blood Moon KO it.
Like, we have the Blood Moon in the discard, we just need Night Stretcher for game, and that is 1 card, and we have Quick Search available.
Yes, we have the card that lets us get any 1 card. So we effectively lock up game by knocking out this Gardevoir right here.
Yeah.
We can see Emma never punished Hagen for grabbing that water energy that she forgot to attach previously, attaching it to the Eevee now, quick searching for the Flareon, and just saying, here is my Carnelian.
Like, yeah, it's a very minor misplay, but it's the type of misplay that if it goes punished, it can really punish me, because in the few situations where Eevees is 1 card short, that is the way into a game that you should never lose. So despite it being like a very minor misplay, a misplay that most people wouldn't really think about, it's very important for me that I bring it up because it's a critique of my play. And like, I consider myself the current best Eevee player in the world, and to be able to keep that pilot, or keep that title, even though I gave it to myself, I need to make sure that my play doesn't stalemate, doesn't just be the same that I've always done.
Yes, you know, you've got to stay on top of the ball, and you've got to really make these informed decisions.
Exactly.
Which I think, whenever I speak to my friends about Eevee Box, because they're always asking me, how do you consistently do so well with Eevee Box? What is the trick to it? Should I play Eevee Box? And I just say to them, probably not. No, you probably shouldn't, unless you genuinely do have so much time to dedicate into it to, it's like learning how to ride a bike again. You know how to play Pokemon, you know how the meta works, but learning how to play Eevees, specifically this version of Eevees, is like learning the game all over again.
It is.
Because of how fundamentally different it is to every other deck in the format.
Like, keep in mind that I have been playing the games and playing the deck since June. I have dropped it for exactly one tournament, got second place at that league challenge, and regretted it. Like, I have over 200 recorded tournament match game wins with this deck. Like, I know what I'm doing because I have put in the hundreds of games with this archetype.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely something that, you know, someone can pick up and they can just absolutely grind and they can just say, yep, I will learn Eevee, I will learn how to be good at Eevee, I will put in the time, I will read all the notes, I will read the articles, watch the VODs, all of that stuff, and I will become a good Eevee player. But if you just want to pick up Eevees because the deck looks pretty good, it looks pretty fun, and you know, you think that you're a decent enough player, that may not end up working for you as well as you'd like. You know, you will probably get frustrated that things aren't going your way and that the deck doesn't appear to be as good as you thought it was. But that's just because you haven't put in the time and you haven't fully learnt how exactly the deck functions. Because as I say, it is like learning how to play the game all over again with how nuanced and how different it is to the rest of the format.
Exactly. Like, if you ask me today, do you recommend if I play Eevees to Milwaukee, I will give you a strong no. Absolutely not. You should just grind the deck you're good at. Do not try to play the most difficult deck in the format with 2 weeks, a week of practice. Like, you need to know what you're doing. But if you ask me, should I play this deck to Lil? I say yes. The deck is super well positioned, it's super good, it has one bad matchup, and that matchup is on the decline.
Yeah. And I think we spoke about this a couple of days ago, saying, you know, has Eevee had its time? Has it had its run? Do we want to reconsider it? And I think the conclusion we reached is no. It's still very, very good. And the matchup that we're worried about, Dragapult, is currently seeing a lot less play with how the format is evolving.
Like,
to which, if our sketchiest matchup is going down in play and all of our other matchups are, you know, favoured or even to favoured, why would we not still play this deck?
Exactly. Like, at this event, I was the first match to finish round 1, so I just went around and scouted, and in total there were 6 Dragapults in the room. And half of them hit a Gardevoir and lost round 1.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what it is with Dragapult players and loving to lose against Gardevoir, but I'm sure that they all take that in stride and enjoy that. But we don't see a very good board from you this game, Emma.
No.
If I'm being completely honest. This board does not look good for you.
But we also don't see a very good board for Remy. And
no.
I want to tell you something that I only purely found out afterwards. Remy has double rolls priced.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Terrified. Because if I get the Torrential Pump, I have a way back into this game.
Yeah. So I guess that Arven for him is going to be really impactful. Just getting that secret box and just really getting him as far into the game as possible.
Like, if you've paid attention to the cards he's discarded, he's already discarded both the Night Stretcher, Curlia, and Gardevoir. So he's already low on resources from the start of the game by prizing double rolls. He has done no progress in the board state or the game state, and now he needs to burn even more resources because he doesn't have access to Candy Gardevoir in hand, so he needs to prepare for it the next turn. So this is a very interesting situation because my opinion is that he just needs to go full ahead turbo and win the game before we're able to punish him for the lack of resources he has. But spoiler alert, he chooses to go a different route than what I would personally go for.
Yeah, so we see here, still figuring out that secret box. What is the absolute best thing I can do right now to just get me as far into the game as possible? Really thinking that decision through, playing that secret box, discarding those cards, grabbing the Poffin, Research, TM, and the Artisan, which seems pretty standard. You just want to build your board up.
Actually does have
Poffin.
I didn't realize that, considering he...
Yeah.
I don't think he grabs the candy here, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely see the Mystery Garden and the Vessel as well, just to really draw as many cards as possible and just set up such a strong board that you, with your weak board, probably won't be able to respond to as well.
Yeah, and I just want to take this as a moment to say Remy does spend a lot of time on the secret box, but that is not because he's slow playing. That is because I've specifically told the judges and Remy, this is a matchup that doesn't go to time. We finish game one super quickly. Take your time. And I told the judges specifically, this is an unofficial event. Don't give them a slow play warning. So
yeah.
at this point, the casters are reacting to how long it takes. But this is something that I've already cleared with the judges. So don't come after Remy for playing slow. He's been allowed this time.
Yeah. And it's, Secret Box is the most nuanced and probably the biggest decision in the deck. Like, you don't get much more of a macro decision than this, to where you need to make sure that you're playing it absolutely perfect to maximize your chances of winning the game.
Yeah.
So, in a setting like this, to where we just want to see the best possible play, this is completely fine.
Yeah, exactly. And at a regionals, I'm not I'm calling a judge if it takes too long, but this is $300 money match, yeah, but for me it's more just a fun showcase. I really enjoy being on stream, and I want the stream games to be as good as they can be. I don't want to win on a double prize penalty for slow play or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, doesn't seem like there's much more going on from your side over here. But again, we do see Remy choosing not to go into the Gardevoir last turn. He's got to find a way into it this turn.
At this point, he has double Gardevoir in the bin, he has Night Stretcher in the bin, and he has double Roll Surprised without taking a prize card. He is running low on resources.
He just has to get into that Gardevoir. Otherwise, his options are, okay, well, I Frillish and knock out the Hoot Hoot, and then I give you potentially a Fez plus the Wellspring, and you sort of run away with the game. Or I don't announce Oceanic Bloom, and I give you item cards, and, you might be sitting on a ton of really good item cards in that hand that you just can't play. So he really here has a set of unfortunate choices he would have to make if he can't get this Gardevoir into play. And the Curlier won't cut it either, because the Curlier can just be Wellspring sniped. He needs to find that Gardevoir.
Exactly. Which is why I was so surprised that last turn we didn't see the rare candy Gardevoir, because I didn't think he had Gardevoir in hand before drawing off of Psychic God. But seeing the replay, we do see that it was there. But if he did candy Gardevoir, he had nothing more to play that turn.
Yeah. So I guess this is more of just a multi-turn play, which again is why the secret box took so long, because Remy here was thinking a whole turn in advance of actually what do I need to do this turn and next turn, because you're not really doing much this turn. You're probably just sitting there under item lock, draw passing again. What is Remy's best play at the moment? We see here the Ultra Ball for the Jellicent. You see the restart for 3.
His options are either going to be pass the turn and allow me to have items, or Oceanic Bloom and let me promote the Wellspring. He's doing neither of those things. He's item locking me while passing the turn with Jellicent.
Yeah, again, just a really good way of building up the board. Just saying, okay, I have a Jellicent in play, so I'm still item locking you, but I just want to build my board up as much as I can whilst I'm doing that.
Yeah,
I
flashed a hand. I have Nest's Ball, Ultra Ball, Counter Catch, a bunch of useless cards at the moment. And we see here Remy Night Stretching for Dark Energy. This is a play that I hate. Generally, it's difficult to say that about plays, but you are down so much resources. You are down double Gardevoir. This is your second Night Stretcher. Your only access to Gardevoir is Super Rod. He did price check to Super Rod. The Super Rod is in deck, but this feels so risky to me. It feels like he's playing with fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we still don't see that Gardevoir hit the board. Oh. So you are theoretically only one top deck away from actually doing something really cool.
This is where I told you about the false... Wait, no, never mind. I think it might have been later, because there will be like a false positive where Twitch chat thinks that Remy screwed up, but no, I just had Pidgey.
Pidgey, we love Pidgey. We love threatening the Pidgeot coming into play if the Pidgey is not dealt with.
Yep.
You know?
Oh, he did have
We finally see that Gardevoir coming out from Remy.
In this card case, I don't mind the Night Stretcher play as much. I thought both Gardevoirs was in the discard pile, and in that case, it's a horrible play. But apparently, I just didn't pay close enough attention. So I'm taking it out on my cape.
See here, Remy sort of like debating, okay, where do I want to put my energy? Do I want to be announcing Power Press? Do I want to be just, slowing the game down as much as possible? But no, he's perfectly content just sitting there. And you have the Latias this turn, which unfortunately is just one turn too late. But
is it?
It's still pretty damn good.
It's still pretty damn good.
We have the Black Belt here, incredible. So that Wellspring is going to be doing 140 damage into the Jellicent.
Yeah.
And I guess here, playing the Black Belt is just a case of, I can play it. I'm not really doing much else with this card throughout the rest of the game. I'm not really playing any other supporters this turn. I may as well just do that extra 40 damage. It might help set up a KO in future.
Might be relevant. It probably isn't, but it's way more likely being relevant being played now than not being played, because this isn't exactly a situation where I want to save the Black Belt for potential Burning Charge KO Mew EX or Blood Moon Gravity Mountain Black Belt KO Gardevoir EX or Cruel Arrow Black Belt Gravity Mountain KO Gardevoir EX. That's my favorite.
Yes.
Play. That's like my favorite play in the day.
That is a very fun play. If you ever find yourself in the situation going Burning Charge 2 energy onto Pheasantipity and saying, there's 2 energy on my Pheasantipity. Do you want to knock this out? No? Okay, let's counter capture up that Gardevoir. Let's play Black Belt. Let's play Gravity Mountain. I'm going to announce Cruel Arrow for 280 damage, and your Gardevoir is now knocked out.
Like, these are the types of plays that, because the list is so not known before this weekend and before Pittsburgh, like, you as a Gardevoir pilot has no way of playing around it. I want you to pay attention to this turn.
Now, this is shaping up to be potentially quite an interesting turn. You see here your board looking quite weak. You've got a Hoot that's 20 HP away from being knocked out. You've got a Pidgey that's 30 HP away from being knocked out. And, you're down however many prize cards you're down. Is it something like you're at 5 prize cards, Remy is at 4, I believe?
Yeah.
So still not too far into the prize race, but you look at board state and you just think Remy is so far ahead here.
Remy has 4 cards left in deck at the moment.
We see the Fez, and we just go, okay, let's just try and maximize our chances of getting back into the game.
Yep.
We're probably going to see a flip the script, and we will just see what we draw off of there, and that will help influence our decisions of what to do next.
I want to point out that is a French serendipity, because I'm European. I'm allowed to play European cards despite being in America. So I have like a couple of German Fallout supporters and French serendipity, Pavianos.
Yes, I had that same thing happen when I was in Milwaukee, I think it was, where one of my opponents was quite confused as to why I was playing French and German supporters in this tournament. But I said to him, even though you and I speak the same language, I am from Europe. I can play European language cards in my deck, even if I am at a tournament in North America.
Nathan, I do not have energies in the discard pile before this. So this
you do not, because you used Torrential Pump.
I did. This Ultra Ball is very meticulously on purpose.
Yes. So let's quickly look at Remy's board, shall we? So his Gardevoir has 30 damage on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that Gardevoir has 280 HP remaining?
It does. It does.
Let's count how many energy Remy has on his board. So I can see 3 on the Gardevoir, 1 on the Clefairy, and 1 on the Monkey Dory. So if my maths is correct, 3 plus 1 plus 1 is 5.
And
I think here we're just seeing a little Twitch chat intervention.
We are seeing a little Twitch chat intervention, and they had nothing of note. We skip through this. They thought he double attached, but the thing that actually happened is that he attached. I passed. He attached again. 2 turns.
Yes. So again, lovely little false flag here from Twitch chat, but that's not too unexpected sometimes. Sometimes these things do just get caught up, and sometimes it really is so difficult to keep track of everything. Sometimes you think that, I've spotted something that no one else has spotted, when in actuality, they have all spotted it, but it's nothing we need to be worried about because it's not actually there.
Yep. Good chat. I want to say I love you guys, but I'm in the finals, you are not.
Truer words were never spoken. So, going back to analysing this board here, again, we can see 5 energy on Remy's board here.
They're just watching him Fortnite dance.
So, so, if we have 5 energy on the board, and our Leafeon does 60 damage for each energy on Remy's board, 60 damage times 5, that works out to be 300.
Yep.
And 300 damage into that Gardevoir that is already damaged will knock it out. And that will knock out Remy's only Gardevoir in play, and he will have absolutely no way to put another one into play.
And he will have no way of punishing my lines, because he can only Monkey Dory once, and Clefairy only does 200 damage at the moment, so I would be able to
we see here,
completely steal the game.
Immediately, you put down the Wellspring to have the Terror effect, you put down the Energy Evolution Eevee straight onto the bench, and then you Glass Trumpet to it.
Yep.
You get a free energy attachment off of that Glass Trumpet, then you attach the Grass Energy from hand, and say, okay, there's 2 energy on my Eevee now, I'm going to free retreat into this Eevee, and I'm going to evolve it into a Leafeon.
And we see
straight away. And this is what let's go back about a minute. Let's just rewind about a minute here.
A minute 50.
Yep, that's perfectly fine. So this is our board state. Let's fast forward a tiny bit, just back to where we were. We see how quickly we spawn that attacker in.
Yeah.
You had nothing on your board, and you went from nothing to Pidgeot in play, Fez on bench, Hoot Hoot on bench, fully powered up attacker, ready to go, backup attacker, also sitting on the bench. That is how fast this deck spawns in attackers, and that is how you close out games. Because you say, I can just go back.
And Remy
there,
the match.
Yeah, he sees the writing on the wall. He knows, I don't have another Gardevoir. I'm not really able to get up any more attacks. Emma has a fully powered up, not fully powered up, but pretty damn close to fully powered up Leafeon in the active. She's just going to overrun me at this point. Pidgeot is in play. There's nothing I can do. He knows the jig is up.
Like, that is a game that I should never win under any circumstances. Like, this is what people are referring to when they say you have to get lucky to win a tournament. You have to have situations where you see the line to win, and you have to put yourself in that position to get lucky. If Remy had access to double rolls or a Gardevoir earlier, or just started punching earlier, then I might have just been ran over due to my horrible start. But because I top-decked Delatius at the exact last turn, I was able to do that without just losing the game. And because Remy honestly underestimated my deck. Like, at that point, I have 3 Pokemon in play, and one of them is Delatius. Even if I have access to items, you don't expect me to do that. But I did draw a pass for like 6, 7 turns. And those cards didn't go anywhere. I never got Iono. They were just still in my hand. So despite not having access to a lot of cards from the get-go, with Noctowl and such, I just had everything I needed. Because I never got Iono.
Yeah, you just sat there, you built your hand up, then when it was all fully built up, you essentially said, I have a really big hand. I'm going to play all of these cards down. Bap, 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 bap. I've just spawned my attacker in from nowhere. I've set up a whole board in the span of 1 turn. And Remy just took one look at that and was like, yeah, okay, that's fair. I'm going to scoop this up. Because he simply didn't see it coming. He did not, he didn't predict that you would be able to do all of that in 1 turn.
I also want to talk about one of, personally, my favorite strengths as a player. I consider myself to be one of the faster players in Europe.
Yes.
I have not gone to time a single time since picking up this tournament. And yesterday I played tournament number 8, 9 with the deck. And because I play so fast, because I know my deck inside and out, I am able to hedge on these 5% win rate matches where any other player would have conceded super early when I just pass. And I just get to play that game because I play my almost maximum speed from game 1 in every game. So I'm not worried about going to time. I'm allowed to explore these avenues that are normally locked out if you don't have the same player speed.
Yeah, but I think that's also one of the strengths of Eevee, is that naturally, it's a deck that doesn't really tie. If we want to say, okay, we're going to be really fast here, we don't tie because of how fast the deck is, how aggro we can make the deck be. If we want to sit there and we want to be tempo and we want to play slightly slower and, withstand hits and build our board, that's fine and all. But all we're really doing there is we're just watching the clock whittle down. And then when you get halfway through game 3, you look at the board, you look at the timer and you're like, it's probably not going to finish. That's just not great. You just want to be playing as sleek and powerful as possible, just to say, I am going to win 2 games in 50 minutes, and I don't care about anything else.
Like, I think ties are the most frustrating part of Pokemon, because it leads to one of two things. You take a tie, and you basically get a loss in the context of a tournament. 1 match point versus 3 match points is way larger of a difference than people think about. Or you have to take a gentleman's agreements. In my experience, most of the drama that people personally have with Pokemon are with slow playing and gentleman's agreements. So if you're able to put yourself in a situation where you don't need to experience either of those, you just get to have an amazing tournament experience, because you either lose and just like, move on, or you win convincingly, and you don't have to have those moments that keep you up at night because the opponent stole a game from you, or the opponent didn't honor a gentleman's agreement, or you felt like you were ahead in the game, but your opponent had less prizes, so you were obligated to concede. Those type of situations are my least favorite in Pokemon.
And I think it's important to realize that, but also to realize that when actually you can just say, okay, we're going to go for the tie. I was at a League Cup the other day. I was playing Flareon, and round number 1, I sit across from a Crustle player, which, as you probably know, is a really bad matchup for Flareon. We just don't play any way to break through the Crustle wall consistently. Now, I get quite lucky against this Crustle player because I managed to squeak out one of the wins. You know, I can't remember how the game really went, but I somehow managed to beat the Crustle player in one single game. So I simply said to myself, I'm just going to run this timer down. I'm going to wait until the game finishes and timer hits 0. And I'm going to take this 1 match point. I'm going to walk away with that because that's what I want to be doing. That is me rather taking 1 match point instead of 0 match points against a matchup that is awful for me.
But
Nathan,
yeah,
it's yes.
You
it's
know
not
how I
great,
call myself
but
the best Eevee player in the world, and I don't give that title to you.
Mm-hmm.
In Frankfurt, I beat a Crustle 2-1.
I feel like that might be something to do with the Crustle player and not you, but
Well,
I
it was mostly
digress.
about the list. He didn't play healing, so I was just able to 4-shot his Crustle in 2 games and won because he didn't have anything that survived boss.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. But yes, that about sums it up quite nicely. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap things up? Anything else, general thoughts, anecdotes about Flareon and its positioning in the meta at the moment?
Currently, I just think that the deck is probably better positioned than it ever has been, despite us at the start of the format being like super scared and being like, maybe we should drop the deck. Just after playing games of the format and seeing how the format is developing, I just think that Flareon is just an amazing meta call for this format.
It really is. You know, you see decks like Gardevoir getting so many buffs, which Gardevoir, you may not think it is, but actually it's quite a good matchup for us because we have Pidgeot. The fact that we play Pidgeot single-handedly flips the Gardevoir matchup to something that would ordinarily be quite shaky to quite good for us because we're so kitted out. We have Pidgeot, we have Gravity Mountain, we have Blood Moon. We're fine against Gardevoir. So actually that's not too bad to see Gardevoir rise up in play because that means more good matchups for us.
Exactly. Like, when I have Pidgeot in play, I have not lost a single tournament game to Gardevoir. And I've played this deck for like 3-4 months at this point. I've played against many Gardevoirs. I've played against the best Gardevoir pilots well, not the best, but very good Gardevoir pilots in Europe. I did double break against Aban Ahmed in Pittsburgh, but aside from that, I have 2-0'd every single Gardevoir I have played against in Frankfurt.
Yeah, because the matchup is just so good for us if we can get that Pidgeot onto the board.
It really is.
It's not just Gardevoir as well. It's decks like Goldengo as well. We saw half of Top Cut at Full Grip was Goldengo with Solrock Lunatone, which actually is still a pretty good matchup for us. If we see more of that in the room, we're happy. We like playing against Goldengo. We like announcing Burning Charge for 2 prize cards. That's good.
My match against Danibara in top 8 was over in 10 minutes. Not game 1, both games, and I took 6 prizes both games. It was just complete decimation because that matchup is beyond free. They do have some counterplay if they do play the Rocks package, but I do go through it pretty thoroughly in my Eevee guide on Metafy on how to both play around it and to punish them for doing it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing to note is we see Gardevoir on the rise, we see Goldengo on the rise. That naturally means that we're going to see Dragapult drop a little bit because it's not that great into those 2 matchups.
So 2 decks in a row.
Because we see less Dragapult, that's less of a bad matchup for us. You know, we purposely have taken out the Sylveon, the Clefairy, the Psychic package, the Super Rod, the Colourful Friends. We've taken all of those cards out because we believe that package isn't actually even enough to beat Dragapult. We'd rather play just 1 or 2 really good cards that give us a better matchup into it, like Black Belt, for example.
In my opinion, the Dragapult matchup is way better now than it was at NAIC for you when you played Sylveon and Clefairy. Like in Pittsburgh,
yeah, absolutely.
For 4 Dragapults, I went 2-2, and we went to game 3 every single time. So I went 6-6 into games against Dragapult because I just had a solid game plan. I knew the matchup a lot better than my opponent did, and I got a little bit lucky.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all you need. I think there was a time where, you know, if you could get a fully charged up Sylveon and a Pidgeot on the same board, a Dragapult player cannot beat that.
No, but they can't.
It is so difficult for you to get to that board state in the first place, where you have a fully powered up Sylveon and you have a Pidgeot in play, that it doesn't actually really happen that often, no matter how much you try and push for it. It's just not consistently happening, and it's not a consistent way of beating the matchup.
And in my experience from the recent innovations with the deck with cards that cannot be cut, it is not possible anymore to play both Sylveon and Pidgeot in the same deck, because you need access to Glass Trumpet, you need access to Blood Moon, you need access to Kieran. Pidgeot is a 3 card package with Jack as kind of the 4th card, while Sylveon package is a 4 card package. You have Sylveon, you have Teferi, you have Psychic Energy, and you have Terra Orb. To beat the...
I would also go as far as to say you have even more cards. You have Colourful Friends, and you have Super Rod, and you also have Third Crispin.
But
you know, all of those cards...
The minimum.
Yeah, but you start looking at the deck and you start rethinking it, and you're like, oh, I should probably play that and that and that. And actually, no, we don't want to be doing all of that just to improve one matchup that we don't even really beat with all of those cards.
Yeah, like that matchup has just always been flawed. Like I've heard about like what Ian Robb discusses in his Metafy on the deck, and like it does work if you get everything off. It's just that you sacrifice so much consistency, power level, and versatility in a deck that is so vulnerable if you don't build it correctly.
Yeah. I think that pretty much covers everything that we want to go on about today. Have you got anything else at all, Emma?
I want to do some shout-outs myself, but before I do any shout-outs, do you want to do some shout-outs?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do. First off, obviously, a massive shout out to Project Artemis for allowing me to come on and share my thoughts and experiences with Emma about how Eevee works and, some of the decisions that we make in our, deck building process, our creative process. So huge shout out to all of these guys. I really appreciate everything that you do. Also, shout out to the party people who, without some of them, namely Christian Fontenot, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't have had some good ideas like Energy Switch, for example. That one came from Christian. We wouldn't have a lot of tiny little moving pieces that this deck has come to be because of all of these tiny little suggestions from so many different people just saying, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? To where it really is almost impossible to thank and appreciate everyone. But I really am appreciative to everyone that I've worked with on the deck so far.
Yeah. I know from your perspective, Christian was the first person to bring it up, and massive respects to him because he figured it out without any outside testing. But I had already heard about it, and I had heard it was quite good because Manos from Greece was playing with Energy Switch and Ursaluna like a couple of weeks before we did, and he was trying to convince me to play them. I just at the time couldn't find the cuts because I believed like we really needed Colorful Friends, we really needed a bunch of cards that we don't really have, like Teeny and all that stuff.
Yeah. Huge shout out to Manos as well. Big up, Manos.
Hell yeah.
But yes, that's pretty much it from me. I'm really glad to have been here.
Thanks. I would like to shout out the same people. Party People and Artemis are amazing. This is obviously on the Artemis channel, so go them. I want to shout out specifically Kevin Kruger for this period, because currently I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I would not be able to stay in the US for such a long period and attend the Full Grip event if I wasn't able to stay at their place. So just having them support me in all this has been very, very impactful for me. I want to really shout out Party People for just being at my side and our side for so long. Like, we're at the point where we have 2 people trying to be professional Pokemon players, and that would not be a thing if we didn't try to support each other all along, if we tried to just do this only as Norwegians, only as British people, only as Danes. It really required that combined network to be able to work long term for me and for probably a lot of you as well.
Yeah, well, you summed it up quite nicely there, Emma. Again, thank you so much. I think that is pretty much everything.
The last thing I want to shout out is our sponsors, FCBC and Heavy Play. I've used both of their products since the day I got them, and it's been really amazing. Like, especially the Heavy Play stuff was really cool at Full Grip because their tables are magnetic. I was able to play with the play mats and the deck box, and it was really fun, specifically at that event, aside from just being high quality stuff.
I must say I've used FCBCs myself quite a bit as well, and I absolutely love the quality. I love the design. I love the feel of them. They're really, really good.
And this one isn't even paid to say it.
I know, it's crazy. Not even paid, free advertising. But yes, again, it's been fun.
Oh. This recording has gone over 2 hours, so I'm sure most of you are tired of me talking about Eevee Box or Flareon or just Eevee's, many names. But if you're not, then my Eevee guide on the Project Artemis Metafied page has over 7,000 words and covers every relevant matchup, in my opinion, and covers every relevant card you should consider for your deck and most relevant lines. So if you're interested in a deck, definitely give it a shout. Like, it's only $5 if you only want that article itself, but If you want access to everything the Project Artemis Metafy page has, it's $10 a month, and it's definitely worth it with how many high-quality players we have on the team.
Yes, brilliant. Well, lovely.
And with that, I think I am ready to say see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.